started listening to the Audible book of Blade Runner. I mean, the book isn't called Blade Runner. It is in Audible because that's what everyone's looking for, but it's actually the what's his face? I'm trying to think of the author. I'm totally brain farting. But do androids do electric sheep have dreams or something like that is what it's actually called. So far it's like, I mean, I knew the Blade Runner movie was based on the novel or whatever, and so far you see a lot of the elements are in the movie, but they also sort of cut out, with, in my opinion, good reason, the infatuation that Decker, you know, the main cop, or not cop, bounty hunter, has with getting himself a live animal, and that he owns an electric sheep that lives on the roof of his building, and his neighbor has a horse. I mean, it's really kind of weird, this desire to own an animal, and it's really present in the book about everybody wanting to own an actual animal. It just seems kind of silly. I mean, maybe, I don't know how old the book is. Maybe people were not so removed from farm life, but I mean, nowadays I don't think anybody they have a dog or a cat, you know, that's about the extent of it. Maybe a bird. But anyway, it is about a future world, you know, destroyed by like war and radiation and that sort of stuff. So you can understand the fascination with the last remaining animals on Earth, because there are colonies off of Earth. But one of the interesting things, and I think this is the whole point of that book, is that there's the Nexus 6 is the newest line of artificial human being, and distinguishing them from humans is, at least in the early parts of the book, a real turning point. No, that's not the right word. I'm studying my way through these trucks and I can't think. Thank you, dude. But distinguishing these artificial humans from actual humans has become a more difficult science and study in physical and biological and psychological responses. And it presents an interesting problem, because even the robots don't know that they're robots. And if people can't distinguish them without some drawn out psychological, you know, physiological response, that sort of thing, then really what's the difference? I mean, in biological terms, if you can't, I was going to say replicate, you know, when you have sex and you have a baby, replicate. If animals can't conceive together, then they are distinct species, right? And when we're talking about these robots and humans, that's essentially what that is, right? But other than that, if you can't tell the difference, what is the difference? And does it even matter? If they are having sort of a physical response or an emotional response to anything, even if it's programmed in, I suppose the difference, at least from a human perspective, why you would actually feel like there's a difference, is if the programmed response is just a response. There's no empathy or In other words, if you program a computer to respond, if you program a computer to answer the question, how are you doing today? And it just responds with some random answer, or even a pre-programmed one, just, I'm doing fine, thanks. Does that mean anything? Versus an actual person has to ask the question of themselves. I feel such and such, and because our response is just a bit more complicated, but the robots could be just as complicated. Like, what kind of things go into describing how you feel today? It could be how much sleep you've had, how much food you've had. It could be how much stress you have from worrying about whatever's going on in your life. So basically, it's a summation of your waking hours and your physical stuff. I just fucked them. I think maybe we actually overestimate the human complication. I mean, our brains are super complicated. We don't really understand them, but our behaviors aren't that complicated. I mean, the only thing that complicates it is that there are somewhat random... There's a bit of randomness to... If we have to make choices, right? Things aren't predetermined. And with the computer, you set out an algorithm, right? And then you can predict the response based on that. But if you make the response more flexible, it might not be obvious. So really, what is the difference? And I think it comes down to a little bit of what makes racism what it is. It's the idea that you are different from the other. And instead of just being okay with that, accepting that, acknowledging there might be a difference, you actually hold some sort of resentment because of how it makes you feel. And in this future Blade Runner world with these robots, if you can't tell the difference, then there isn't a difference. You just leave it be, right? I mean, it only matters in certain situations. It's one of the more interesting. It's probably the entire point of the book, actually. It's this whole artificial intelligence. Come on, Lexus. Excellent job, asshole.